From deep in the bowels of the mothership, we have recently uncovered a series of ancient tapes containing conversations on game design which we are declassifying and sharing with the public for the first time. This is the Barash Files. Wee-woo, pretty spooky stuff.
I've missed a musical intro again.
What do you mean? Yeah, we haven't done any intro. You can just
I
go.
know, I want to do a musical intro. I haven't
just
planned
do it.
anything.
Oh, you just want to do it, but you haven't done any work towards it.
No, of course. I only remembered now.
Well, you have a couple weeks because this is not going to go out for a while. We could add the intro later. So if you want us to record separately, by all means.
True, I could sing at home.
Do it. Anyway, this is a new episode of Lucky Paper Radio. You are listening to it on your device of choice. Happy Monday or Tuesday. It's one of those two, statistically speaking, based on our analytics. My name is Andy. I'm here, as always, with my co-host, Anthony Proud Fungi Father Maddox.
Now that is one I can agree with, because I like to...
Do you normally not agree with your nicknames?
I was a little bit concerned about Diarrhea Doctor.
Dr. Diarrhea, please.
Of course,
PhD.
of course. But fungi husbandry is something that I do very much enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Mazel tov. It's a spore.
We got a guest on this show. We are joined, of course, by probably our most returning guest at this point. Parker's part of the crew. He's part of the core crew, so we're not going to count those as guest episodes.
Patrick, I'm coming for you in a friendly, gentle way.
I think you've been on more than Patrick has.
I think this is my 7th time.
I think that's more than Patrick.
Okay. Well, Patrick, I'm sorry.
We got 7-time Zach Proud Human Papa.
Yes.
Barash.
I am a papa of a human toddler now.
Toddler? Is it
toddler?
Is it already technically toddler stage?
I think once you hit a year old, you become a toddler.
Oh, whether they're toddling or not.
Yes. Although the toddling has
Is there
already
anything
since
between
begun.
infant and toddler?
Newborn to infant as the beginning part of infant/baby, into toddler, into little
Go
kid.
off to college.
Yeah.
They basically go off to college next, and it's going to be real fast.
I know.
Lightning quick.
It's pretty great.
How does fatherhood compare to raising fungi? just to put it into my point of reference, that would be really helpful.
So, given that each of us has not done what the other is currently undergoing, it will be hard to compare notes.
How do we communicate?
I will say,
at all?
My daughter is never put inside of a bottle.
Is she at risk of exploding at any time?
She's never in an anaerobic environment. So
that's really important, actually. I know that about human children.
All that's to say,
here's the thing is, actually, fungi are aerobic, so take that.
All right, so we have more to talk about.
We have lots to talk about.
How often do you take your fungi to the playground? Have they learned how to pump the swings by themselves yet?
No, I cannot empathize with that.
Oh, I love pumping the swings. Swings are great.
Swings are still good. That's not something that's been canceled. They didn't discover that swings are super dangerous.
I mean,
they're definitely dangerous.
Swings are definitely dangerous.
Okay, but we're still...
I haven't seen a single playground near me that has anything other than the little kid bucket swings. And I miss the big kid swings because I would totally still go on those.
I've been on one within the past year, and I gotta say, it feels crazy. When you're a kid, I feel like it's not that exciting. And as an adult, I'm like, oh, this is I'm moving fast.
Yeah, I mean, you're also bigger, and that probably translates to more force if you fall and hurt yourself.
Well,
right?
yeah, but not more speed.
I don't know. I bet you're a lot stronger than you were as a child and could get that swing going pretty fast.
Maybe.
Wait a
I'm
minute.
just saying gravity is the same on both. I mean, unless one of them is extremely light and therefore has a bunch of wind resistance. But that's the whole bowling ball and a golf ball fall at the same speed thing.
Don't correct me about pendulums. I know how pendulums work.
I wonder if it's less physical and more psychological, the relationship that you have to your body when you are younger. Not even the I'm older and I have to take care of myself, but a lot of becoming an adult is unlearning that running around is fun, and running around often is the thing you do when you are late, so you have bad feelings with it.
I never learned that one.
It is a chore. I mean, it is good to not learn to feel bad or feel shame about a lot of the things that are fun as a kid. But there's often a sense of embarrassment of playfully, safely horsing around as adults that we're doing something that we shouldn't be doing anymore. When, I don't know, I want to encourage my daughter to have fun as long as she wants. And we end up outgrowing things, but I think some things we outgrow unnecessarily.
For sure. No, I think it's purely physical. I think I don't move. My body doesn't move like that anymore. When I was a kid, I was jumping off of stuff and climbing stuff. And now I sit in chair, go for a walk, maybe go to gym, but I'm not swinging around. And so it's just the feeling in my stomach. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is kind of intense. Anyway, swing is kind of scary. That's my hot take on this episode of Lucky Paper Radio, but that's not our topic, because that would be not worth the whole episode, I don't think. Yeah, our relationship to playground swings these days.
We're here to talk about approaching cube design. This might be a little freewheeling. We'll see what happens. Also, as a reminder, hi, my name is Zach Barash. I work for Wizards of the Coast. Here to just share my opinions with friends, not speaking in any official capacity.
You are not a sock puppet.
No, I'm a human being.
That's right. I'm just verifying you're not a sock puppet. You don't have some wizard behind the scenes telling you what to do. What do you mean approaching cube design, Zach?
I mean this as a broad topic, something that isn't just for first-time cube designers, but is for first-time cube designers and can be applicable to people at all levels of experience. It's fundamentally about how to start a project. We're probably also going to harp on things that we talked about in the Barash Files. I don't know if this is going to be an episode of the Barash Files or not.
Yeah, it is going to be an episode of the Barash Files. And also to be clear, like we were on like episode 305 of this thing, so we're going to say stuff we probably said all these things before. You could definitely cut apart the words we said in previous episodes and make us say the same stuff we said in this episode. So we've basically said it all. We could put all the words together in the different orders.
One thing I talked about previously, and I talk about a lot, is about giving yourself a goal, giving yourself touchstones, how to make choices when you need to make choices, how to keep you from getting stuck, and when you do get stuck, giving yourself a way out. I want to talk about lenses that you can intentionally equip to help you start a project. Mm-hmm. This can be really helpful, I think, as a new player to give you permission to do things that might feel bad or wrong or lazy or like you're not doing it in the quote right way. And this is also useful for designers of even high experience levels. I'm not saying I know more than you, but I find this helpful terminology of a way to approach a project in a novel way, or a way to approach a project in an intentional way, or even a way to approach a project in an efficient way. You might not want to ever approach a project in an efficient way, but it's good to know the tool exists.
You're describing this all very abstractly, but I think everybody that is designing a cube approaches with a goal, and the goal is usually, I want to design a good cube. Is that a good goal, Zach?
I would say that is an example of a great goal that's waiting for refinement.
It's a bad goal, people.
No, I think it's just that the word good is so loaded, and I think it does mean to everybody something very specific. Like, they do have something in mind. It's just a very poor way to communicate it, because they probably don't have the bigger context to be able to say, like, well, what is your unique goal? Like, what does good mean to you? Do you think that's fair?
100%. Good is the challenging word of that context. It is both too vague in that it gives you no sense of what you are aiming for, and it is too vague in the sense that it is impossible to satisfy. Ultimately, you're looking for what is good enough, and the good enough is, all right, you are ready to prototype it and play test with people. You're ready to stop. Some cubes have goals where the goal is not to have it forever, which also I think is an important thing to bake into your cube. Some people really want something they can tinker with every single set. Some people want something that is going to be a time capsule of a specific moment. Some people want to make something answer a question and then be done with it.
It sounds like you're suggesting that there's not only like a goal in terms of, if I put the right set of cards into this box, it will be checking this box and it will be good. It will meet my requirements. There's also like defining what is your relationship to this cube. And the cube isn't just a list of cards. It's also, well, is your goal to have something that is part of a regular process that you use to evaluate new sets? Or is it a thing to bring to a specific event? Or is it a thing that you want to be able to put on the shelf and pull off every 3 years whenever you just want to like play something without having to do a lot of setup? So the entire relationship to your cube is an important parameter to set.
Fundamentally, the question I would say is, who is your audience? And for a lot of people, the audience is either themselves. I want to make something that works for me, or your specific play group. On this podcast, you're going to encounter more people who might be designing for an event, or who are going to be designing under restrictions or constraints. We first started talking about this as a potential topic. The first thing that came to my mind was grad school for me. I went to the NYU Game Center. I have an MFA in game design. It is highly unusual. It is not necessary to be in the industry, and I really enjoyed that program. It's a 2-year program. The second year is a full year master's thesis, which for almost every single team my year was a video game. And I had one of the largest teams, and we weren't clicking.
This is a team project where you're collectively making one game.
Correct. There were 5 of us on this team.
Interesting.
There was a ton of talent, really good attitudes, but we were not clicking. And we realized we had diametrically opposite goals for what our project was going to be.
You did not want to make a good game?
In fact, I would say half of us really didn't. The split in the team was we can make a game that is really polished, that is an excellent thing to go into our portfolio. It is going to be the kind of thing that is going to stand out, make a good trailer, and help us get jobs and really strut our stuff and show all of these muscles that we've developed in this program.
Which is the purpose of many people going to college at all. Like that's what they're doing. Yeah,
makes a ton of sense why somebody would do that. I was of the other cohort on the team where we wanted to ask a question we didn't already feel like we knew the answer to. We wanted to learn something new about game design, and in so doing, possibly unlock a sort of mechanic or a style of gameplay that had never been done before. And in so doing, that opens up the ability to create something that can be novel and popular and successful, but making something polished versus making something that asks a question and explores are very different lenses.
For sure.
And once we realized we were trying to do different things, we split the team in half. Half of us asked a question we didn't know the answer to. In our case, it was about cooperative gameplay. Can we make it so it is
So you had already answered that question, which is no, you could not work together as a 5-person team.
And it was better for all of us. And it taught me a good lesson of trying to build self-knowledge, trying to know what I'm trying to achieve as I'm setting out to do it, and recognizing that you might want to reevaluate your goals, particularly if there's friction. Now, a lot of cube designers are doing this solo rather than in a team, though sometimes people do it in teams. So the team dynamic may be less germane for a lot of cube designers, but still what am I actually trying to accomplish? And then once you have the thing in front of you, and you're like, how do I go forward with this? How do I handle the feedback that this idea was bad, or this card that I built it around is bad, or doesn't work? Bad is, again, another vague term, but one you'll often hear, or weak, that's another one. How do I move forward? And by having goals, by having a touchstone, by having a specific lens you can equip, that can help you shine a light and answer, how do I move forward in this moment?
That anecdote about your grad program reminds me a lot of something that I would always tell my students. I've taught graphic design at a college level and occasionally advised on senior thesis projects, basically. And this is especially true in graphic design programs, at least the ones that I've been exposed to, is that graphic designers are, when they're students, very invested in appearing professional. Like what they want to do is real work, or work that looks like real work, things that are like plausible that you would get assigned in the real world. And the thing I always advised my students was like, look, you got your whole career to do corporate branding or, whatever the sort of typical, professional looking graphic design is of the particular moment. Do something for your thesis that no one will ever pay you to do. This is your last opportunity where you're in a structured program that will allow you to do something and justify something that the systems of incentives and money will not pay you to do. So you got the rest of your life to do something that looks normal and professional and real. Do something more artistic right now. And some students responded well to that. Some were like, I just, no, I'm making a logo for a fake company. It's like, okay, fine. If that's what you want to do. But yeah, I think college for me has always been a place to explore things that you can't explore in the real world.
Something I find so challenging, though, is that when somebody is like, oh, I just want to make a good cube, they just don't have the words to understand what it is they want. So, I'm curious, in that anecdote you described, did you just have to sit down and have a conversation and be like, I want to make this, great, let's just figure it out? Or did you have to collaboratively learn that you had different goals because you all thought you were on the same page and it was just things that were taken for granted?
It led to a conversation. We were working together for a couple of months, and there were frustrations that built up because we hadn't fully realized what we were setting out to do. We hadn't established clear goals, or we sort of had, but there were unsaid assumptions.
Right. Yeah.
And also there was just a split among the team of what we hoped to do after grad school. I was going back to my full-time job after grad school. It was less important to me to have a portfolio piece because I had work lined up and I already had published work with my name on it. That in a way is going to make me less hungry than somebody who needs to build out that portfolio. In that, it was also, we were just in different stages of life is the wrong term, but we had different backgrounds and different goals there.
So what do you think people mean when they say they want to make a good cube? I think I know what a lot of people mean, but if we think there's a lot of coded, unspoken assumptions there.
I think there are many different meanings. I think probably one of the most common ones, and the first lens that I would introduce, is comparative. This cube is awesome, and I want to make something like this cube. So Cube Cobra will give you notifications when somebody clones your cube.
Really? Mine just has a big number 99 in the corner that never changes.
Oh, the notifications.
Yes.
I see. You never clear
Anthony never
notifications. I get it.
No, but like I know for a fact that there are multiple cubes in the School of Bun Magic. I know that 100 Ornithopters is a cube that has been cloned enough times that I think on the cube map it probably has its own section.
Absolutely.
Safe to say it's been cloned or tweaked or heavily inspired other projects at least 100 times.
I want to make clear to everybody listening, particularly first-time cube designers, there is absolutely no shame or anything wrong with just finding your favorite cube out there and copying it. If you like it and your goal is just to play it with your local community, that's 100% cool, that's 100% valid, and that can 100% be good enough for I want to make a good cube. It is a completely valid goal to say, there is an experience out there that I love, and I want it for my community, exactly as it is. That's a very simple, straightforward, and acceptable goal.
I don't want to derail your nice notes, because I think you're jumping right to like what I think are the best answers to this question of like, what is your goal and how do you define good? Because I think a lot of cube designers actually don't define it that way. They define it as like, oh, it needs to be balanced, or people need to like it and it has to be skill testing or whatever, like some kind of squishy idea of like the cube being good or successful on some objective terms that is kind of absent even a connection to like another cube I like, right? Though I think oftentimes people that have this attitude are doing something power maxy, and so they're usually doing it in the spirit of, you know, vintage cube, but maybe with some restriction or something like that. What do you say to those people who are just like, I want it to be balanced, or I want to make sure that it creates interesting gameplay? I hear these kind of goals all the time where it's like, yeah, everyone wants their cube to make it like we all, yeah.
Several things to respond to. I'd say, first and foremost, I'm not saying this biased as a member of Wizards of the Coast. I'm saying this biased as somebody who's been playing Magic since 1995. You're playing with Magic cards. Like, the gameplay's probably going to be pretty interesting.
We're all doing this on the biggest easy mode possible, which is why we say so often on the show, like, if you want to design a cube, just do it. Throw cards in a pile. Do not worry about power outliers. Do not worry about color balance. Do not worry about your curve. Just put cards together, and the rules of Magic and the fundamental genius of the game will carry so much, and then you can just start iterating from there. It's
easy to say cube in some ways is game design fast-tracked and in easy mode. And I think that sounds like an insult, and I don't mean it that way, but you're never in the position, unless you're doing a custom cube, in which case, more power to you, and I'm not allowed to look at it.
Do not tell Zach about it. Do not tell Zach.
You're never going to have to redesign the actual atomic components. You're never going to have to rebalance a number on a card. And that can be paralyzing in game design, and I'd say in many ways that is liberating in Cube. Similarly, getting somebody to play your prototype can be much harder than saying, hey, Cube Group, want to play my cube? I'll say this over and over again. Balance is overrated. I completely agree with Andy that like if you're just trying to get started, just take cards that are in your collection, use that as a restriction, and get it to the table as quickly as possible. It's the best way to build a cube. It's the best way to learn. You will learn so much more from a playtest than you will from theory crafting. But I still think it is worth it to build that self-knowledge and know what you're trying to accomplish. Who is my audience? What am I trying to get out of this experience? Which could be anything from like, I'm building a local cube night and I want to build a pretty accessible cube for them, to I want to play something fun with my friends, to I have this sort of aesthetic idea and I want to make an art project with cube. You might not even be making something that is intended to be played with that much. You're making it so that it exists out in the world. That is a valid thing, but that is an important thing to know and to be able to say, because in that case, playtesting will not help you with essentially any component of your cube.
I think what I find when people don't have a better answer for what their goal is other than making a good cube or a balanced cube, I think a lot of those people, frankly, just want a cube to play. And they're like, well, I got to make one, so I'll do that. And maybe they do, as you sort of alluded to, feel weird about just like copying a list or whatever. But you also don't have to want to design a cube and like go through this design process. If you just want a cube to play, like you said, clone a list that has similar goals or has, you know, a kind of gameplay maybe you want to pursue. But again, I think we're talking about someone that maybe can't even articulate the kind of gameplay they want beyond balanced or, you know, whatever. Yeah, copy a list or just take what you have already in your bulk bins, refer back to our episode about building a cube from your collection, and just like, do not think about it that much. Part of why this works so well is that draft is very much a self-balancing thing, and people will take the good cards for their deck and they will pass the bad cards, and that means that at the end of the day, the table's, generally speaking, going to be pretty evenly distributed in terms of where the power level lies. And that is something you can lean into in your cube design and just be more forgiving.
I know we've talked about balance in previous episodes, but it's worth harping on again because I think it's a word that leads people astray so much more often than it helps them. Balance, I think, is completely overrated, and I think balance is an easy thing to get distracted by. And balanced in objective terms is meaningless. There could well be, I don't know, there's a group of people that have a relatively low-powered cube that has Minsk and Boo Timeless heroes in it, except nobody has noticed that, like, the Planeswalker has a plus ability. Or, like, they collectively choose not to use it, and in that world, the card is balanced. It's not a great example, but there is no such thing as objective balance. One of the most cutting pieces of feedback when you're not prepared is your cube is unbalanced, like, this card is too strong, this card is too weak, and too strong or too weak, at some point, yes, like, a card is not in dialogue with everything else. It, like, removes so much agency from the game. I like to come up with simple examples. I think previously we did 359 Goblin Pikers and Inferno Titan .cube. Like, yeah, Inferno Titan is not really in
That's my pick.
Yeah. Like, yes, whoever opens Inferno Titan, as long as they don't miss on land drops, is going to win 100% of the time.
How many lands you put in that deck? I'm playing 20, I think. 20 mountains in my Inferno Titan deck.
Are you putting some Goblin Pikers in there just to be safe?
Yeah,
I'm playing 19 Goblin Pikers, 20 mountains, one Inferno Titan, I think.
And you might have won the optimization problem of that
Well,
cube.
look, here's my point. Even that's kind of interesting. Like, in your stupid example of, like, here's why, you know, this would be, like, plainly unbalanced and, like, who cares? There's still room for expression of, like, all right, how many mountains do you put in your deck where, like, the only thing that matters is your 6-drop? And how do you mulligan? Like, do you keep 2 lands, 5 Goblin Pikers? Is that what you want for your opening hand? Like, I don't know. There's still questions to be answered, which just points to the sort of self-correcting nature of a limited Magic.
Yeah, I don't think I ever want to play this environment.
No, of course not.
It exists as a mental exercise, but you do a good job. I hadn't been thinking of needlessly dramatic pause because I lost my train of thought.
Coincidence, you forgot what you were saying right as you said you did a good job of, and then, you know.
Even in an
Andy do a good
environment
job
that
of?
seems like it is just unplayably bad, there are still interesting things. Now, imagine you've actually put heart and soul into it or duplicated something that you think is awesome. There's going to be a lot of interesting things in there, and you're never going to figure out the perfect balance state, and I think you shouldn't do it as a goal. The 360 no Inferno Titan Goblin Piker environment is ostensibly just an optimization problem. It is nevertheless a perfectly balanced environment, but I don't think that makes it any more fun. I think it makes it less fun.
We have covered the balance thing before. Refer back to previous episodes of the Barash Files. Returning to our point, I think you said it well when you referenced that, you know, the type of feedback players are most likely to give is going to be about balance. And I think the cube designers that express that their goal was balance are probably still thinking in a player lens. Like, they are not really thinking as a design project. They're thinking like, well, I want to design the kind of cube where people don't tell me it's imbalanced, right? Where I don't get the obvious player feedback of this card too good, this card too bad.
Another reason to equip a lens to have goals in mind is, I think the overt goal is, I don't want anybody to tell me something is imbalanced. And I think there's often an implicit goal of seeking validation. Now, to be clear,
Sure.
Everyone needs validation. And, like, frankly, it's probably a nice thing if you listen to this and, like, validate somebody in your life because they probably deserve it. We are social creatures. We need that. But I think people often get so invested in their products that they seek the validation for an end in and of itself rather than the validation of a job well done. You accomplished your goal in an effective manner.
Yeah.
So goal number 1, however long we are in, we'll go faster, I promise, is you love something and you just want to duplicate exactly what it is. I would say potentially the most common starting point is number 2. I love something and I want to put my own spin on it.
I know we're going to go faster, but real quick, I think the comparative thing, you can just copy an existing cube. A lot of people, I think, have that comparative thing, but what they want to capture is like a different kind of Magic they like. And does that still fall under the comparative lens, you think? Or is that a different lens where it's like, I'm not trying to put my spin on it. I just want to, like, capture, you know, Neon Dynasty Limited in a cube. And so, like, how do I go about that? Is that the same goal or a different goal?
I think it's different, and I have it as number 3 on my list.
Okay, great. Well, then let's just stick with number 2. Doing your own spin on something you like.
And again, these are broad and overlapping lenses. So this is as simple as, like, I love Bun Magic Cube, but I wish it didn't have any green cards in it. Or I love Bun Magic
Or I wish it
Cube.
didn't have any Versus Beyond cards in it. That's what a lot of the clones do right away. I see in the logs.
Or what's this Baltimore Singleton thing? Let's cut all these duplicate lands.
No one does that.
Really?
You're not cloning Bun
Interesting.
Magic Cube if that's what you care about.
You look at the cloned version, like every cloned version.
Not
of
every clone, but occasionally I'll pop in.
All that's to say, that's a valid expression too. And that dovetails into the third thing, which Andy has jumped slightly ahead to, of you love something and you want to make something in that vein. A set cube is an example of you love something, you want to put your own spin on it. Retro vibes cubes, it's sort of kind of blending the two things. It could be as simple as you have a very specific starting point of another cube, or something harder, you have a very specific starting point of a vibe or an era. Or, what did you guys do, like last year or something?
What did we do last year,
You
Anthony?
designed
Quick.
a
What did we
cube
do?
around it, a single card.
We did it for Goblin Charbelcher, and we did it for Trade Routes.
Trade routes is the one. Like, let's say you love trade routes and you just want to make a cube that trade routes fits into.
Okay, interesting. I feel like that feels like a very different lens of starting with just an individual card and how do we build around that. But like you're saying, these are all overlapping and bending and saying like, oh, I really like this cube. I also like these card. I'm going to equip multiple lenses at a time and see what does it take to sort of fit this individual card into a sort of established network. And is there a little bit of jostling I can do to make that work?
The advantage of saying something like, I want to build a cube where trade routes is a decent card is going to help insulate you against feedback that is going to be counterproductive to that goal.
For example, cut Trade Routes.
For example, you're going to get a lot of cut trade routes. It's one of the weakest cards in the cube, and there's helpful feedback there, but it's the opposite of what the person is saying. Because again, the easiest type of feedback to give is power level based, and if you follow that kind of feedback, you are generally going to trend towards a power maxed environment. Nothing wrong with that, but if that's not your goal or that's not what your community... No, I really don't.
I know you don't. I'm just making my own noise over here.
I would also say this might sound like I'm tooting your horn, and I guess to some extent it is, but it's true. You are
Get off my
highly
horn.
advanced in this area, and you set yourself some pretty lofty goals to hit. And I think among the listenership, we're looking at a very broad array of designers, and even highly advanced designers. Sometimes it's nice to do things the, quote, easy way.
I just think that if you are making maximizing power one of your like central goals, it very often kind of somewhat defeats some of the purpose of Cube for me, at least what my purpose of Cube has become, where it's just like a place where you can play any card you want. And if you're just like, well, I'm going to play all the constructed all-stars, it's like, okay, well, we have places to play those cards, and now we're just doing it again, but slightly different. There's value to all these Power Max cubes. I'm hamming it up a little bit, but...
It's also very funny to me how cube design in the Power Max mentality also only works within this little garden wall of, we're playing with the bumpers. It's kind of just like, I'm going to play it, I'm just going to roll my bowling ball as hard as I can against the bumper. Because if it wasn't there, and you were just like, I'm designing everything from scratch, you would be like, well, of course, lightning bolt costs 0 mana, and it does 20 damage. Thus, I've solved it. I've made the best lightning bolt I can.
Or even just breaking singleton on, a vintage cube that's Power Max. It's like, okay,
Sure.
well, how many lightning bolts do you put in the breaking singleton Power Max cube? Is it 15, 20? I don't know. Anyway.
30?
Let's not get distracted by my little cheeky noise I made about.
And look, I will also accept that I am grateful that I think the cube community at large is, I think, increasingly accepting of not strictly power maxed being an acceptable approach to cube. Power maxed is exciting to a lot of people because you get to play with big, strong things. You get to play with some of the most iconic cards in Magic.
Almost everyone's introduction to cube, mine included, right? It was just like, for me, it's like, I don't play constructed Magic, so I want somewhere to play Snapcaster Mage or whatever. So, like, I get it, certainly.
And I had a real concern that, like, I work on the arena-powered cube, and when Boros was stronger than we wanted it to be in the first version, how would people feel about us saying, this isn't a, strictly speaking, completely power-maxed environment?
What if you just passed over some of the best Boros cards because you like wanted to nerf it? People might be like, well, why aren't you playing the good cards?
That doesn't make sense to me.
Yes.
Why would you ever do that? And people, by and large, have been very accepting of that. And so I will agree with you. I think the community as a whole, not even just people who are on their 7th cube and going to cube events and have listened to every episode of Lucky Paper Radio, but like a broad swath of people who engage with cube, I think have expanded their possibility spaces of what cube can be. I agree with you that to that extent, more people would agree to the idea of like, cube isn't just power maxed, and I think are therefore open to giving more feedback than just power level motivated feedback, even if it is oftentimes the default area to start.
I've never regretted a cheeky noise more. I've derailed this so much by going, eh. So anyway, back on track.
All right, well, thankfully I have an outline. Inspiration. We're going more and more into the weeds of rather you are going down a well-trodden path of I'm duplicating word for word or deviating slightly from something that previously exists. You're taking a card or an era or a vibe as inspiration. Another example is you are inspired by another cube, but to do it very differently. I have been on this show before talking about the Cascade Cube, which I've made, derives directly from the excitement I had from engaging with Turbo Cube at the very first CubeCon and the lessons that I had from reading Rainbow, both excellent Baltimore cubes.
I think it's so sick, by the way, that reading Rainbow is like this seed crystal for so much.
So many.
Daniel's so unplugged from the Cube scene because he was completely like an outsider and had no context for Cube at all. He like did something radically weird and different, which I was initially like, I don't know about that. And then it turned out to be great. And it's just so cool to me that like there are now like these reverberations that have like reached so far in this like big pond, and Daniel's like just back playing Commander. It's very funny.
There's a lesson to draw from that too about, I know we're going to harp on it continually in this episode about sort of not just getting power level motivated feedback, but if you keep
Daniel had a goal.
Daniel both had a goal, and also if you keep yourself open to perspectives other than the default one of power level motivated, you are going to get more interesting information. And if you are applying a specific lens rather than a broad, unachievable goal of like, I want to make something good, which lacks the specificity to satisfy, you're more likely to encounter somebody like Daniel and learn something new, or you're more likely to hear feedback from somebody who's going to give you a piece of emotional data or an unusual card suggestion, or talk about a like underperformer in your cube that they wished performed better, rather than starting at the level of what was too good, what was too weak.
The thing that I think is a little bit implied, and you've said a little bit, is that the whole point of doing this is not just like a pedantic exercise of making sure you've clearly defined your goals so that you can put it in your cube description or whatever. It is because it reflects on every design decision you make and how you think about your cube, how you talk about your cube, how you present it to other people. I think the cube world now, at least I'm talking about like the cube design world, not like everyone that plays the arena cubes, people that are interested in cube design that are, you know, trafficking in those spaces. Now, like, I don't think power level is even the default anymore. Like, certainly if your cube is weird enough, people will look at the list and go, okay, well, obviously they're not power maxing because Rhino Lantern is in here. So, like, clearly, like, the suggestion of Rhino Lantern seems bad, you should cut it, is not going to make any sense because that's clearly not the goal. When you have articulated that goal clearly, then you can both with your own inner dialogue and with your dialogue with other people figure out how to think about making changes to the cube and like have a clear, coherent direction you're pursuing.
When people ask me for feedback now, I respond frustratingly with like, what sort of feedback are you looking for? What are your goals for this cube?
That happened actually me this morning. This morning, somebody brought out their new Jund Tubert, which we drafted with 4 people because we had 10 people at Friday Morning Magic, which is awesome. Afterwards, he was like, I'm open to any feedback. Like, I really want everyone thinks. And I was like, well, what are your goals? And one person was like, that's a good question. And I was like, yeah, I mean, we got to know. Like, I have a lot of thoughts, but it completely depends on what you want this to be. Because at this point, I think what that cube is right now, which is very much like a power-motivated Jund small cube, I was like, look, if you're drafting this with 4 players in this draft format, I think everyone should be playing all 3 colors. I don't think there's any world where you're supposed to play just 2 of these colors and like leave yourself closed off to opening a really powerful card in the 3rd color. So what you've got is like a draft format that challenges your card evaluation skills. Like, what are the good cards here? What are the cards that are good enough to be worth picking over fixing? And it challenges, you know, your deck building. But more than that, I think the draft is about just playing the Jund Mirror. If you want like a way to play the Jund Mirror that is, you know, not so prescriptive as like a battle box or a Dan thing, then it's a great solution to that. But if that's not what you want, if you want like a range of viable decks, then I have a lot of feedback because I don't think you're at a place where like there's a wide diversity of viable decks. So the goal is like essential to understanding all of that.
And also there's understanding what you want that experience to be. Oftentimes people answer that question for themselves but don't realize that they're asking it. Let's say the designer knew exactly what they wanted, where they were like, what I want is to relive Jund Mirror matches through Cube.
Right.
From 2015-ish.
That was the year I picked too when we were talking about it.
And you could be like, cool, this is very successful at that, and that's not an experience that I'm looking for.
I mean, what I would have said is, cool, that's great. Pyrogoyf kind of makes a lot of the stuff that is cool from that era look very bad. So if you want people to be excited about playing Huntmaster of the Fells, maybe Pyrogoyf doesn't belong alongside that, you know?
Those cards are maybe distantly in dialogue with each other. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. But that's the kind of feedback you can give when you know the goal.
So another goal, relatively simple one, I want to make something that my community doesn't have. So this is not necessarily, here is something in the world that I love or am inspired by and I want to create. It's, you're part of a community and you want to bring something different there.
That's an interesting idea because I wonder how much that overlaps with the first idea because if you're
my
looking...
community doesn't have a cube.
Well, sure, but I mean, if you're saying, okay, I'm in this community and we have 2 cubes already. We have like the Power Cube or a Vintage Cube and we have a Pauper Cube.
Yeah.
And I want to do the 3rd thing. Like, I think you only have a sense of what that 3rd thing is if you've spent a lot of time looking at what all the types of cubes are and then thinking, okay, well, a set cube is like the next obvious step. Are there other ways to like notice that negative space?
Brief story time. I think I started cube drafting in like 2012. I made my cube in 2013. And my cube design was not in its infancy then, but much, much younger. And my community had a Powermax Pauper Cube, a Powermax Peasant Cube, Powermax Legacy, and multiple vintage cubes. I wanted us to have something different. I noticed that there was an absence of that we were getting all these cool cards in Booster Draft, and there wasn't space for them. And so
they weren't the literal best of class ever printed, you know? Yeah.
And I wanted to play with those cards. I still liked a high power level environment, but I wanted something that was like 2 steps below. I ran into a similar problem that Anthony did when he wanted the regular cube. Well, what power level is regular? Like it's somewhere between stronger than a master set and current booster draft and core set. It's sort of somewhere in that area. That, I think, is both a gift to yourself and a gift to your community of trying something different where you don't know what the outcome is going to be, but you're intentionally deviating from what your community does already.
This will probably be another one of the starting points you'll get to, but one of the ways to notice that negative space is to be like, here's a specific card that just can't hang anywhere. Mm-hmm. Can we make a space for that card?
If you have that as your lens, you're going to be resistant, not in like a intractable way, but you're going to recognize any feedback that is going to push your cube towards what your community already has is the opposite sort of feedback you want, or it's helpful feedback in that it is telling you the opposite of what you should do.
That's interesting. I love that idea of being like, yeah, I'll listen to your feedback for sure, but I'm not going to interpret it the way that you think I'm going to, and you don't need to know that necessarily even.
It's like you have a compass, and it points north all of the time.
Even though you don't always want to go north.
And
I've been trying to figure out how compasses work for...
Stop telling me to go that way!
No, but it's true. And you're like, oh, thank you so much. You are telling me exactly where everyone else is parked, and all I want to do is explore in a different direction. And learning for its own sake, or making a home for cards that have been rotated out of your cubes, even though you don't know what the expression is going to be, is itself a very helpful lens. And most critically, is going to help you resolve feedback of, oh, I'm getting this criticism. I'm going to lean directly the opposite direction, not because I'm being a jerk, but because it's helping me narrow towards my goal. I'm trying to go south, and everybody tells me where north is.
I think it's very illuminating to see the difference between cube designers that look at the decks that are doing badly when they're trying to make changes to their cube versus look at the decks that are doing well. I think the default power-motivated mentality is like, all right, what's struggling? How do we make it better? Just always try and make that thing better. Then a new thing will be the worst. We make that better, and we just kind of do this over and over again. I find more and more as I've designed more cubes, we should acknowledge, the three of us sitting around this table, we are not normal with our relationship to cube. We are the weird outlier on every bell curve imaginable. I like having multiple cubes because it allows me to not try and shoehorn everything I like about Magic into one environment, which I think is a pitfall I see a lot of designers falling into with their first cube is like, well, here's the place for everything I like about Magic. And it's like some of those things might not be compatible. And I have found it very liberating to be like, okay, here is my cube that is about playing clean, simple Magic. So here, that is the lens that is going to take precedence. Do I really want to put Young Pyromancer in it because it's a clean card? Yes, but also do I have this guiding principle that I only want each color to have one token? Yes. So I'm going to forego my strong desire to play Young Pyromancer in favor of the cube's more cohesive goal of not having 2 1/1 red tokens because that's just dumb. And it's it's going to add unnecessary complexity to the logistics of the night. And then you have, 100 Ornithopters, which you'll get to, I'm sure, the idea of a cube as an art project. Cube is a weird experiment in what is or isn't possible. That's a place to play around. And there, I am way more willing to run cards that maybe aesthetically I find objectionable. I will put Universes Beyond cards in that cube because it feels more appropriate to me. It's all right, well, here, this is about this weird experiment, and to leave off some of the potential experimental material doesn't really make sense, even though I personally don't like the aesthetics of whatever, Universes Beyond card we're talking about. It seems to me another important vector here is you've got your goal, and then how much are you conflating that goal with what you personally like? How much are you letting your own personal, what you like as a player, weigh in on that versus letting the goal speak for itself?
You started from a very narrowed in lens of the three of us in this room have been doing cube for a long time and thinking about it a lot. But I think what you just said is highly applicable to anybody who is engaging with cube design. You never need to fit the totality of who you are as a player or what you love into any project you make. And
it's impossible to do so.
It is impossible to do so.
Trying to do so is a recipe for disappointment.
And having multiple cubes can be liberating because then every one of them can have a home. But ultimately, knowing what you were trying to do is going to help you feel satisfied in what you do and ameliorate the sting of cutting beloved cards.
For sure. I would say too, like, yes, it's one thing to have the kind of play group and investment in this format that you can have multiple cubes and draft them, which is where we're outliers, I think. But I've got multiple cubes, and there's still lots of cards and lots of things I love about Magic that are not represented in any of them. And importantly, I don't feel the pressure to, like, squeeze them in somewhere, right? It's like, okay, you know, I also really love the idea of using an Eldrazi Titan to recycle my library. And you know what? There's just no cube right now where it makes sense to use an Eldrazi Titan to recycle my library to not die from mill. That's not a thing that makes sense in any of my cubes, and that's okay. I don't have to squeeze it in somewhere. That's what you should have, that mentality, regardless of how many cubes you have. If you've got 1, if you've got 10, accept that, yeah, you can cut a beloved card. Something you like about Magic might not be present, and it actually is probably better for the project to think about it outside yourself and not so intrinsically linked with what you like about the game. Because the other thing is, like, people have been shocked that I've been adding life gain cards to Sacred Geometry. Mechanic that I'm famously
averse to, but specifically in Bud Magic.
I mean, I as a player still don't like it. I'll playing some other cube and I'll be like, oh, great, nice job of putting equipment on your Vault Scourge. Very cool. Like, it's still a thing I just don't like as a player. But in Sacred Geometry, the whole point is to, like, represent the, like, core identity of the colors of Magic. And, like, if you don't have life gain in white, you're kind of missing the point. And so it's like, I've tried to bring it in a way that is, like, more palatable to me. But at the end of the day, the goals of the project are going to trump my personal, like, distaste, because I want these things to have an identity unto themselves that is not just like, oh, another Andy style cube, you know?
Interesting. So you guys are saying that one of the best ways to start a cube is actually just to start 3 cubes, and it's much easier that way?
Honestly, sure. Start 3 cubes, and then whichever one you end up liking most, then actually go, you know, acquire that one instead of focusing on just jamming everything in one environment.
As somebody who has 5 unfinished cubes right now and is paralyzed by that, no, don't do it.
Well, no, I mean, I was going to defend that idea just a little bit and say, like, yeah, if I was to sit down and write an essay, the first paragraph wouldn't be what ends up in the published, form, right? Like, I'm going to have a couple starts before I hit on the structure or the topic or whatever ultimately that's going to be what works. So, like, the idea of starting a cube and being like, the first 10 cards I put in have to make the final list and have to be, like, correct from the start, that's not really reasonable. So I like the idea of encouraging the flexibility of, like, yeah, try a couple things and see what's working at the beginning.
You're also not going to sit down never having written a book before and write your magnum opus memoir that, like, covers everything you care about and love in life. Like, that's just not how any creative endeavor works.
Whenever I'm dealing with students of game design, I try to remind them that every design is an iceberg.
It will kill thousands of people in the North Atlantic if a boat hits it. Every idea is an iceberg. They are disappearing slowly, and it will cause climate change issues.
Every idea is an iceberg.
It might contain a rare old virus that we have no immunity against that's been frozen in the ice for thousands of years. Please protect your ideas at all costs.
Every idea is an iceberg. It's a 4/4, and if you spend snow mana, it'll tap down a creature.
Okay, here you go.
That's a Bergstrider reference.
Mm-hmm.
Every idea is an iceberg. You're going to see maximum 10% of it. 90% of the work that went into it is hidden away. And you as a designer grew from every single cut and every single thing in your maybe board and every single painful removal that you had. 2 takeaways I would say is, 1, there's always the ability to make another project. There's always the ability to put the thing that you love somewhere else, even if you don't know where. And germane to this conversation in particular, if you know what you're trying to accomplish, you know whether or not that's an essential component or an ancillary one. If trade routes is the central card of your cube, and you are cutting it, that is acceptable, but you have to recognize you got to change lenses, because I want to make a cube where trade routes is a viable part of the cube. Is no longer satisfied once you cut trade routes.
But I think that's actually, like, could be evidence of a very interesting creative process. If you set out with the goal of making trade routes viable, build a whole cube around it, and then discovered a goal you actually liked a lot more, and you're like, you know what? When I tried to do this, I kind of like, I missed the moon and landed among the stars.
I mean, it sounds like that's the origin story of the ball pit.
Do you have any idea how far away those stars are? It doesn't make any sense.
Yes, it didn't make any sense for a lot of reasons. Neil deGrasse Tyson, thank you for... Actually, the stars would look different at night.
You're welcome.
But what you're describing, I think that is the origin story of the ball pit.
Yeah, somewhat, yeah.
It started as, I think, Energy Chamber and or Mirror Enforcer, or am I confusing things? And then became the ball pit.
I think Jane had a lot of like, this is a story I know is resonant to me, and I've heard from a lot of other cube designers where I have kind of a lot of stuff stewing all the time, and it's like, I kind of make a cube that like has this kind of thing present or like represents this, but it's not a complete enough idea to like be a jumping off point for a full cube. And eventually you kind of like meld a couple ideas together, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is actually enough that I can maybe like explore it. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of what happened with the ball pit.
Another way that you can approach it if you have those kinds of ideas and you have a cube, you can do the quick and dirty thing, jam the thing that you're excited about into something else and see what shakes out. Follow your lens for the part that you care about.
Like Greg did with the companion cube.
That was the example that came to my mind.
Yeah, before designing the companion cube, Greg just took an old cube and said, well, we're going to play this where you can companion any card. But I've not designed the cube at all with that constraint in mind, and so we'll figure out what is broken or whatever, but let's just see if this feels like it has legs or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that we're nominally talking about sort of lenses and goals and like ways to evaluate the quality or judge the success of a cube. But there's also a lot of different topics in here which are not about that, but are like processes and like workflow. And once you have a goal, how do you actually make stuff happen? Or how do you like allow that goal to shift and change? I feel like that like editorial process is really interesting to me as well.
I also just encourage people, write your thoughts down. There's power in that. There's power in being able to reflect on how far you've come or to put to paper. I mean, for me, I wrote a column for a while, so I find writing very cathartic. For other people, your medium may vary. But to be able to say, the Trade Routes cube has led me to a different cube that I'm more excited about. I'm now all about compulsion cube. Yeah. If you can say that out loud to yourself, you can now listen to feedback in a different way. You can redefine the cube in your mind, and you can follow the fun of that project. And by following the fun, I don't just mean listen to what people tell you is fun in general. It's listen to what fun people have with the thing that you're trying to accomplish in particular. Mm-hmm. Trying not to be too vague and too heady, but also not so specific.
I think you always thread that needle masterfully, and the listeners love you.
Thank you, listeners. You're great. Happy to be one of you.
Get a room.
I have a home. I have rooms.
Do you have any lenses left? Any frames that we have not yet covered?
I could see us wanting to come back to this one a little bit later on another episode and talk about it. If you've ever been to a game jam, or if you've ever had a friend give you a restriction or a prompt, if you're trying to develop as a game designer or make something that you're not even sure what you're trying to make, it's something that hasn't existed before, giving yourself a challenge or a restriction where you surrender some amount of agency, but as Mark Rosewater said, you give into restrictions that'll breed creativity. I think that's especially useful for people who've designed a bunch of things, often in similar veins, and it can force you outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I think of this when I think about the monocolored cube that I designed years ago, when I really was trying to build a cube as a way to ask a specific question, which is like, how important really is the color pie, and can we make a cube that's still fun without it? And what I got from it was not just the answer to that question, which was, yeah, kind of, but the color pie does a lot, but it just gave me a lot more questions and ways to understand what the color pie is bringing to the table.
I think of Dan Schneider.
You always be thinking of Dan Schneider.
I think he's one of the best cube designers out there, and also is a dear friend, so I'm biased, but like, guy makes a lot of cubes and does so really quickly. But I think Perilous Seas was just, Dan was like, I guess I should probably make a desert cube now. And just had that restriction. I don't think he necessarily set out like, oh, I want to make something that's pirate themed. I specifically want to make something Grixis. I think it started, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Dan.
Sound off in the comments only if you're Dan Schneider.
But I think especially if you're feeling burnt out, or if you feel like a lot of your projects keep starting in the same place, keep having the same fingerprint that you don't want to have, this is a great way to break free and grow as a designer.
I think it bears mentioning that I think cube design is a interesting, creative endeavor that you can do even if you have no intent of ever actually playing the cube or getting people together or assembling the cards or any of that. And I think some people might think that's strange, but like it's completely valid to like, I want to explore an idea. I'm going to go make a list in Cube Cobra and I'm going to post it on the internet and talk to my friends about it. And I'm going to do playtest drafts and I'm going to like, theory craft decks and we're going to talk about how they would play out. That can be the cube. And you're still doing cube design. It is not any less valid because you're like never getting 8 players in a room and like drafting it with a full pod. And I think a lot of these ideas are maybe best explored that way. It's like, yeah, would it be like the best use of time and resources to like take some ridiculous idea and like the only way you test it is you have to go get all the cards together and find 8 people and get sleeves and like then you figure out if the idea is any good. Some of these things are like they're thought exercises and like it's really cool to do thought exercises like that, and a cube is a really interesting medium by which to have those kinds of conversations.
As cube matures, people will more often see it in the way that like cars are an example of there are a lot of different ways to engage with them. You can use a like pretty standard car
You did say car, not cards.
Car.
I was not sure I heard you correctly. I was like, are we talking about cars now?
No, but like vehicles. You can use a car to get around. You can use the same kind of car that a lot of other people have, and it performs the role that you want it to. Or you can just service like the Cadillac in your garage that you never drive, but you just derive enjoyment out of keeping it in tune and improving it. You can engineer brand new cars. You can hypothesize futuristic versions of them. There are a lot of different valid ways to engage with cars that are very different from each other. The same can be true of Cube. You can just be treating it as an art project, and if you know what you're trying to, that is what you're trying to accomplish, you're not going to use playtesting likely as a resource. Or playtesting for you is going to be presenting somebody with the list and seeing how they respond.
Mm-hmm. I've often said that I think Commander has always been a good example of like, these people are still into Magic, and what they're doing with their Magic cards is they're like pimping them out, and then they're driving them down the street really slowly with their friends in their other cool cars, compared to like going on a racetrack and like trying to see who goes the fastest, and that's all that matters. Those are both like equally valid ways to be interested in vehicles or motorsports or whatever.
I mean, one of the things that I think is enduring and wonderful about Magic is just how broad it is, just how broad its appeal is, just how many different expressions of the game that exist that in some ways aren't really even in dialogue with each other anymore, in the same way that like if you play Contract Bridge and if you play Texas Hold'em, yes, you're playing with the same cards, but the expressions that you're using them for are so different from each other, but also you're still playing with the same deck of cards.
Or if you're a stage magician.
I like that example even more.
Or if you're a guy that eats playing cards.
But Cube is like that, and I think it wasn't until things like the first CubeCon that I really started to appreciate that. I've talked again on the show about like the dichotomy cube just blew my mind of like, oh, a cube can just sort of be like a thing that's meant to be in a museum.
Yeah.
Expanding on a restriction or prompt, and this is highly specific, professional game design is very similar to that. You often have very little control over your parameters. So like you might be working for a client and have restrictions, or you might have prompts that you have to use. You might have constraints on your time, like a looming deadline. Now, deadline might be relevant for the people who have ever submitted their cube to an event. Those are additional forms of restrictions that, particularly if you have aspirations of working in the industry, or you just want to make things even harder for yourself, but develop as a designer, those are the kind of restrictions I would say put upon yourself. Give yourself a time limit, give yourself an effort limit, because that's what professional design looks like. Two other lenses that come to mind, and these are just different ways of saying things that we've said before. The first is, do you want to start with your head or do you want to start with your heart? Are you thinking through something and you want to follow that analysis and have an expression of it? Or are you more interested in emotional feedback? What are you trying to follow from yourself and what are you trying to hear from other players? What kind of feedback are you going to prime people for? Are you going to listen more to what they say about how they felt? Or are you going to listen more to what they said about the cards or the experience? Similarly, there's the Magic design concepts of top-down or bottom-up. Are you trying to replicate something thematic or specific, or are you trying to make sure that, like, this is a cube where madness matters as a mechanic? Mm-hmm. To speak to some of my own projects, the Ultimate Masters Inspired Cube, now I call it UMA Plus just for short, that was an example of I was asking a question I didn't quite know the answer to, but I knew exactly what I was trying to replicate. I love Ultimate Masters Limited, and I wanted to take the fun of madnessing a fiery temper with frantic search, casting us big spider spawning, and like having young pyromancer in an environment. And like I wanted those to be pillars of the environment, and I followed that. For Cascade Cube, I was inspired by something else, and I wanted to do something similar in that vein, but again, was asking a question I didn't know the answer to. For my very first cube, I wanted to make something that my particular playgroup didn't have and that let me use a bunch of cards that I love. Those are lenses that I applied so that when I was working on my very first cube and people encouraged me to put the same cards that were in their legacy and vintage cubes, I knew not to do those things. I knew that feedback was less helpful, and feedback that didn't push me in that direction, that went against the compass's grain, was often more helpful. For UMA, I was just trying to replicate something that I loved. So any feedback that discouraged me from like making Fiery Temper functional just wasn't helpful. And frankly, in that case, feedback was in general less necessary because I knew what I was trying to do.
Inside. Yeah, you had it all inside you.
Whereas for Cascade Cube, I really didn't know if it was even going to be fun. And that I knew that thing needed a lot of different iterations.
Mm-hmm. Can I try and summarize and then you correct me as succinctly as possible?
Please successfully summarize. I have faith in you.
I'll do my best. It is valuable to articulate your goals when designing a new cube to yourself and possibly to others. But I think we can say yourself is pretty valuable. And if you want to have others be involved, then it's good to articulate your goals to them too. And those goals should go beyond simply wanting to design a good cube or a balanced cube or, whatever, and instead touch on your specific inspiration or the seed crystal that is like causing you to like go down this path and design a cube. Some of those could be that you've played another cube that you really like and you want to replicate it and put your own spin on it. You've got some other sort of concrete inspiration, be it a existing limited environment, be it an era of Magic. You want to build an old school cube or, a golden era of modern cube or whatever. You have a specific card or mechanic that you want to sort of really make central and highlight. In those cases, you can make those things your sort of central pillar and articulate that. You could want to design a cube that is really a design experiment that is asking some sort of question you want to explore the answer to and do something weird and out of the box, whether you end up actually playing it for real or not. And the value of understanding all of these lenses is to always have a place to redirect feedback and redirect yourself back to your goals when you are like stuck on what do I cut or should I add this card or does it matter that, these things are out of balance with each other or whatever. You could always take all those questions and when you're stuck, turn back and say, okay, how does this relate to making trade routes viable, highlighting the, mechanics of the early days of Magic, replicating this environment that I love, whatever. On top of that, the last sort of part of the summary here is that in addition to those sort of concrete goals, you can maybe think about it a little more abstractly about whether or not how much you want your own sort of preferences and taste to be present versus you want the sort of clear articulated goal of the cube to be the sort of loudest voice, and how much you want to lead with, logic in your head or how much you want to lead with your heart and vibes.
Perfect. That was everything.
Oh, on that bombshell,
we can cut out everything else, and we'll just put that in as the episode. And
all right, this has been a great short episode.
Yeah, lovely. Zach, it's always a pleasure having you on. I hope we can make it not be 6 months or whatever since we last had you on. We last recorded 6 months ago, but I guess those episodes came out. No, was it a year and a half ago?
The Barash files
it was a year and a half
recorded
ago.
a year and a half ago.
Whew. I don't like thinking about time. Make me feel weird. Hopefully it's not another year and a half before we have you on again. It's always a pleasure, and I think you bring a helpful, well-rounded energy to the room. You're like very thorough and prepared, and also very open-minded and understanding, whereas maybe we're not.
It's
we're not
making
those
us
things.
look bad, so that's why we only have you on every once in a while.
I'm happy with the energy I also bring, but I can't be everything. Just like a cube can't be everything. I can't be it all for you listeners. But I promise to be the guy making little snide mouth sounds whenever I have an opinion over here.
It's a pleasure and a privilege to get to be here. I love getting to hang out with my friends. I love getting to cube with my friends. I love getting to talk game design basically whenever. So as ever, thank you so much for letting me be on here and for chatting with me and enduring some of my rambling.
Your enthusiasm is admirable. I think if I did game design for a living, there's zero chance I would make this podcast in my spare time. So I admire that you always have an endless font of game design conversation that we can tap into.
I love teaching. It's part of the reason that I went to grad school in the first place. And the act of being a part of the Cube community and getting to constantly behold the eye-opening creativity, both within my local Cube group, which founded by the incredible Scott Mertz. I'll plug it, in fact. If you're in the New York City area and you go to Brooklyn Game Night for Upkeep every Wednesday, I try and make it out a lot, and the cubes there are phenomenal.
The players are terrible, but the cubes are cool. Players are really unskilled.
All right, Andy, tell me how you really feel about Dan.
Look, the players are very strong in New York. You will lose. Don't play them.
New York City does have a very spike bent to it.
You also got like 14 million people, so, big pool to draw from.
Do we want to take 15 minutes? Open a pack?
If you really want to. You're the guest. Let's do it. Hold on.
Let's see the first thing that pops out of the computer.
I think it's an interesting enough pack. The first one out of the gate here. You specifically requested this for Take 5, which is my cube, which we are going to run the first ever draft tomorrow in the main event of the Salt Box. We need a whole episode about that, honestly, because the amount that both Anthony and my attitudes have changed. Like, we were both very nervous having a cube in CubeCon and being like, oh, it's going to be like so much pressure to do it right. And now I'm like, yeah, I've never played this cube before myself, even once. So have at it, people. This cube, I've been documenting the entire design process on YouTube, which I don't mention on the show as often as I probably should, because I hear people often be like, I had no idea you were doing that. But I've posted, I think, 18 or 19 videos about this cube, about the the entire design process. And the sort of 30-second elevator pitch is that it is a Desert Cube, but it's drafted in normal 15 card packs, 3x15 card packs. Most Desert Cubes have more cards in the pack, and they do that because you have to draft all your lands, so they want to give you more wiggle room so that you're not under a lot of pressure. But I don't. You got 3x15 card packs, and that means you only get 5 cuts at the end of the draft because you only got 45 cards, and you got to play a 40-card deck. The last little thing I'll add in there, I'm still learning about how to sort of, do the elevator pitch for this cube, is that I think a lot of Desert Cubes are designed to feel punishing. They're designed to feel restrictive, like mana is hard to come by and games are slow and they're about like, can I even play a creature at all? It's like a very sort of harsh environment. I do not want this to be that. There are a ton of lands in this cube, and there's a ton of ways to counteract the normally painful things about having a Desert Cube. There's tons of mono double-face lands. There's a lot of utility lands, so you can play, 19 or 20 lands if you want and be perfectly happy to do so because a lot of your lands do other things. And again, I'm providing lots of lands in the cube, so it's not like you're going to get to the end of the draft and have 12 lands and be like, I failed. My deck is non-functional.
Shall we get into the pack?
Yeah.
I don't know how familiar Anthony is with Take 5.
Not super familiar, and I've peeked in on it a couple times, but I know it's been rapidly changing.
I'm going to treat this pack as though I know it's a Desert Cube, but I don't know anything else about the environment. So
let me read the pack, and then you can take it away. I think it's a pretty representative pack, at least, of like what's going on here.
There are 5/8 lands in it, so nearly half the pack, depending on how you're counting as lands.
The pack is Salundi Vision, Dread Return, Shaper Parasite, Llanowar Reborn, Island, Flame Javelin, Malakir Rebirth, Gale Powder Mage, Forest, Shadowy Backstreet, Amulet of Vigor, Pinnacle Monk, Waterlogged Grove, Gathan Raiders, and Vengeful Pharaoh. A lot of readers here for a lot of people, probably. Not a bunch of iconic cards, so check the cards mention page. We'll have the pack there, obviously listed, so you can see all the cards. Yeah, it's a weird environment. There's a little bit of everything that the cube, I think, is trying to do kind of present in this pack.
Pack is really interesting to me. It says a lot of different things about the cube. I like to chunk it of just like, okay, so there's 8 lands, 3 of them are modal double face cards, 2 basics. Basics are inherently something that you want to overvalue in Desert Cubes, particularly if you haven't drafted a Desert Cube. So that's 8 cards. We only have 7 more cards necessarily to look at. We can go into those lands more. There's Amulet of Vigor, which is always an unusual card to see in a lot of cubes. It's a constructed powerhouse in Modern, but it's the kind of card that is relatively hard to make work. But if you look at this pack, it works with 4 of the cards in this pack. The 3 modal double-face lands, as well as the Shadowy Backstreet.
The one caveat I'll say about this is just that how happy are you to play Amulet of Vigor if it's just making your lands come into play untapped, you're playing normally?
That's about what I was about to say. That isn't worth a card.
Right. Yeah.
It is not clear from this pack what Amulet of Vigor is doing, so I'm probably not going to take it here, but I'm going to keep in mind what is this here to work with. There are 2 morph cards in Gathan Raiders, which was in, I think, the Magic Online Vintage Cube, like 2012, 2013. Really
this was a
early
vintage
on.
cube card? That's crazy to me.
Let's put it this way. Highest power level environments today are now sort of overwhelmed with options, particularly in the Jeskai colors. Mm-hmm. In 2013, 2014, there weren't enough best-in-class threats that every card in the cube really felt in dialogue with each other. Mm-hmm. For Gathan Raiders, that could be a 3-mana 5/5, and that was often going to be good enough. Shaper Parasite is a card I don't see that often at all and love as a card. So this makes me wonder, all right, what is Morph doing in this cube? What is the overall power level looking like? Dread Return is a relatively weak reanimation spell, and oftentimes when I see that card, it is a value reanimator card rather than a sort of dedicated reanimator plant, but I'm not seeing anything in the pack that necessarily goes with it. Vengeful Pharaoh, I think, what is that, an M12 printing right there?
I think it's the only printing of it, maybe.
I mean, it's from when I first got back to Magic. I think, I was trying to remember, was it also an M11 or was it only an M12? Probably was. But that is an oddball one, and in a Desert Cube, that triple black pip communicates something to me of like maybe there is a heavy black theme. And what is the sizing of creatures? Looking at the pack, Shaper Parasite, Pinnacle Monk, even Gale Powder Mage are relatively small. So for all I know, maybe that set of stats is better than it looks like. Flame Javelin, perfectly fine if, again, heavy pipped removal spell. And what does it say about removal in general? The only interaction that we're seeing in this pack is Flame Javelin and Shaper Parasite. I think I've hit everything except for Gale Powder Mage, which is a card I adore. It's just Phantom Monster with repeatable flicker. So I wanted to give you that like card by card analysis of, I'm thinking about what else is true about this cube. Why is Amulet of Vigor here? What is Dread Return doing? What does the nature of pips look like based on Vengeful Pharaoh and Flame Javelin? What is Morph Morph doing in this environment? Is there a really high density and expected to be a guessing game around Morph, or is Morph being more used for the fact that it is effectively fixing for creatures? So it's a way to put creatures on the board, even if your mana isn't quite working out. But the 3 cards that really stand out to me are Island, Forest, and Gale Powder Mage. And the heart wants Gale Powder Mage. I love that card. I enjoy playing with that card, and there's nothing it combos with in this pack, but I wouldn't be surprised if I saw things that combo with it. Before talking about what I picked, I'm curious both what Anthony might take out of this pack, as well as Andy's thoughts on the thought process rather than the pick itself.
So I had exactly the same thought process, card for card, no exceptions. However, I'm not doing the same thing at all. I mean, similarly,
he's looking at that compass, it's pointing north, and he's saying, I'm going south.
Here we go. I also looked at Amulet of Vigor and was like, this is here for some reason that is really specific, and I don't know what it is. And if I was sitting down at the table, I would be very tempted to be like, I'm going to take this pack one, pick one, and I'm trusting that there's going to be something very cool that I can do with this. I don't know if I would have the courage to do that. The card that I don't think you pointed out as much is Pinnacle Monk, which I think that's kind of a coward's pick in that, like, I know it's going to be super flexible. It can be a land, it can be a creature, which is just like an incredible amount of hedging that you have in this environment where you have to play every single card you have. So that modality is incredible. And then it getting back a spell reliably is also just like, seems like it's always going to do something very reasonable, and it feels like a very safe pick. So I'm leaning towards that. It is a land, so I don't feel as bad passing a basic over it.
I think that's an excellent point. I think I could have paid more attention to Pinnacle Monk. In a desert environment, my land is a spell or my spell is a land is really, really powerful.
The Modern Horizons Mono Double Face cards
Yep.
are like a full tier better than all the ones from Zendikar Rising, which were already, I think, very strong cards.
Yeah, and in general, if you see a Modern Horizons 3 card in a cube that has a lot of cards that don't start in 2/0/2 on their date line,
Yeah.
that Modern Horizons card's probably going to perform better than you expect it to.
I knew this wasn't going to be 10 minutes. I have so many things to say. First, I love hearing your thought process. I think you picked up on a lot of the things that are happening in this cube. The thing that I want to note here as a designer is that I think literally the only card in this pack that if you got stuck with, you would have to play and just cast is Gale Powder Mage. Every other card is a land or could be colorless, right? To your point, the morphs are in here because they are 3-mana 2/2s in any deck. And I'm giving you a cube where you're only allowed 5 cuts. I don't want you to have literally non-functional cards in your deck because I don't want it to be punishing. I want it to be like a cool creative environment. I don't want you to be like, well, crap, I got to run 3 cards that literally are like completely dead. Even a card like Vengeful Pharaoh,
You can discard it.
you can discard it, you can mill it over, you can entomb it. Like, that card doesn't necessarily have to be in a deck that is playing black. I mean, probably most of the time, but there's reasons you can do that. And then, you know, Gathering Raider just is colorless. It's not actually red. The morph cost is discarding a card, so it's secretly colorless. Flame Javelin is colorless. I mean, I want it to be viable to, like, play unflippable morphs and attack your opponent and also pay 6 mana for a Flame Javelin. That's why all these sort of weird colorless cards are in here, or effectively colorless cards, because Dread Return, you can flash back without having black mana. You can just sacrifice 3 creatures, right? So that is a lot of what this cube is like cards that are, they have a primary use case and then this like colorless fail case mode where it's like, all right, I was forced to run Dread Return on my deck with no black, but I actually found a way to kind of make it useful. And that sort of weird creative deck building or sequencing is what I'm trying to like forefront in this environment. You have a big smile on your face.
I was going to say, I couldn't help a smile blossoming when you were like, I listened to that analysis. I appreciated it. In a way, for the goals of this cube, you picked the absolute worst card out of these 15 that you possibly could.
No, I don't think so.
But the one with the least modality.
Yes, interesting.
The one that was most likely to be a blank. And even like most of these cards that are uncastable, you either play them as a land or you mill them over, or it's Amulet of Vigor, and it incidentally gives you back some mana you would otherwise lose. Gale Powder Mage is the most unplayable of these cards if you cannot satisfy the condition of having the color of mana to play it. And I love that.
And just to be clear, like, there's also, this is a Birthing Pod cube. This is an Aether Vial cube. Like, you could still make a Gale Powder Mage useful in your deck, even if you still have no white mana. It's just that it doesn't do it on the card like all these other ones do, necessarily. What I'll say about your analysis is I think it shows your experience playing Desert Cubes, and I think it's one way that people that have played a lot of Desert Cubes might get tripped up, because I don't think basics are that high of a pick here, personally. And let's be clear, I have never played this cube. I could be completely wrong, but there is almost nothing in the cube that cares about basic land specifically. There is land tax and Edge of Autumn. So you are not going to be omega punished for not having a basic land in your colors because things don't care about basics. A lot of things care about basic land types, plains, swamp, mountain, or whatever. And for those reasons, I think I'm...
Plains, swamp, mountain, or whatever.
Yeah, that's 3 of them.
I know. I just love how you had a 5-word list. You
And
chose
the rest.
It's like those abbreviations that are the exact same number of syllables as the word you're abbreviating. So for that reason, my default bias here would be to take a surveil land over a basic almost all the time because, again, you're forced to play all your cards. I wouldn't think of Shadowy Backstreet as a gold card. It's a hybrid. It's either a plains or a swamp. If you're playing white or black, you're very happy to have it in your deck, whereas you got to be playing green or blue to be happy to play either of those basics. And the upside of getting to surveil in a cube where your deck is going to be clunky, and any kind of selection I think is kind of important, I would take that over the basic lands, and Shadowy Backstreet is certainly in contention for a card that I would first pick here. I will back Anthony up on Pinnacle Monk. I think the fact that it can come in untapped and also on its front side is like a perfectly reasonable card. Like it's a 5-mana Eternal Witness for an instant or sorcery that is a 2/2 with prowess, which is fine. Shipwreck Dowser is worse than that, and that's just a card that's not a land on the back, right? So it's quite strong on the front side. Again, this has not been drafted and played. No one's played any matches, but I have done a couple playtest drafts digitally only. And one of the decks someone drafted, they first picked Pinnacle Monk and were like, I am Pinnacle Monk Control. And I was like, what is that? And then they had...
the classic archetype.
Well, they had Pinnacle Monk in their pool, obviously, and there's a number of ways to make token copies of creatures. And they were like, I'm taking this, and I'm taking these 2 spells that make token copies of it, and then my end game is just... I will eventually make infinite Pinnacle Monks. And I even have 4 Ravnica dual lands, so I can play this as a land for a long time, and then when I want to do my end game, I'll pick it up, and I'll play on Pinnacle Monk, and I'll start making Pinnacle Monk copies over and over again indefinitely. And I was like, that rules. I'm so excited about that. I think those are the 2 that are like the defensible picks, but I also know this cube, and I know that Amulet of Vigor does have a very high ceiling, while I also fully expect it to be played often as like, well, I need another playable card, and this card is castable in any deck, and I do have a lot of tap lands. All these decks are going to have a lot of tap lands, so I think a lot of times it's going to be that very fringe, not worth a card benefit, but you're still playing it. But there is also a big ceiling here of getting to do, essentially Amulet of Vigor combo stuff if you find the pieces. I hope this is a cube where that is rare, and even when you have all the cards in your deck, it's like still clunky to pull it off, You can theoretically loop Port of Carfell with Aftermath Analyst if you have an Amulet of Vigor and like a bunch of Ravnica bounce lands. Like, you can do something with that, but it's clunky as all heck.
It'll be interesting seeing the cube be played in that there's an overt goal of clunkiness. Clunkiness combined with the fact that you only get
charming
5 cuts
clunkiness
means you're going to be forced into novel and creative scenarios. As is often in the case with when I'm trying to optimize in environments that are off the beaten path, that aren't hewing close to what other similar cubes have done, I'm always going to take a long look at what can I do from playing good threats and good disruption, inherently good cards.
Good argument for Gale Powder Mage.
And it makes me look at Gale Powder Mage even more.
And to your point, I do think that Gale Powder Mage is kind of the strongest in the quadrant theory of like, what does this card do in like the worst case, the best case, the medium case? Like, I think it is one of the most solid cards here. And for that reason, that's why it has no other modes. Like, the cards that are less flexible, I'm hopefully giving you enough appeal to like get over the hump of like, you shouldn't get a last pick Gale Powder Mage and have it not be in your colors, because it should be good enough in a lot of decks that people are going to take it pretty highly. Now, you'll get a last pick, Flame Javelin or maybe a Shaper Parasite, and you're like, all right, well, it is colorless, so I guess it's going in.
Thank you for indulging and humoring me in opening a pack of your cool new cube.
I think you were indulging and humoring me, and I'll thank you for that.
Well, thank you for thanking. And on that bombshell.
That's the end of this episode of Lucky Paper Radio. Thank you all for tuning in. All the music for this show is produced by DJ James Nasty, and the show is edited by Matthew. All the Magic cards are produced by Wizards of the Coast, and this podcast is produced by thinking really hard about Magic cards and speaking to microphones about it, Anthony and Zach. Thank you for the gift of friendship, and for the gift of Cube, and for the gift of our great outro.
Oh, you guys. Oh, I was about to tell the story, but I was like, no, I've already told the story of thank you for the gift of Cube and thank you for the gift of friendship.
Go listen to the back catalog, everybody, if you want to hear that story.
But yeah, thank you guys for the gifts of friendship and Cube. And in this case, Sadie.
She got such a soft head.
She's so sweet.
Soft, fluffy head.